health is real. Seek help and the stigma. On the news this evening, House of Reps Speaker Abbas asked Rivers Administrator to report to National Assembly. Rivers Judiciary speaks on retirement of magistrate. Lawyer Agbakoba faults Senator Natasha's sexual harassment allegations against Senate President. Nigeria inflation rate rises. And on the foreign scene, Hamas rejects Israeli ceasefire proposal. I'm Sam Chinedu, and the news continues after the break. Welcome back. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, has reminded Rivers State Sole Administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas, that by the provision of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, he must report to the National Assembly in running the affairs of the state. The Speaker said this while inaugurating the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on Rivers. Speaker Abbas urged the 21-member committee to be guided by objectivity, warning that no room exists for bias and partisanship. He said the sole administrator is required to operate with the highest levels of transparency and accountability. Recall that on 18 March 2025, President Bola Tinubu declared a 6-month emergency rule in Rivers State following the political crisis between the state governor, Siminalayi Fubara, and the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike. President Tinubu suspended the governor, his deputy, and the State House of Assembly for an initial period of 6 months and appointed retired Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas to oversee the running of the state as sole administrator, a decision that was approved and ratified by both chambers of the National Assembly in a controversial way. Moving on, the Rivers State Judiciary has dismissed claims by Chief Magistrate Ejike King George that his retirement was based on the political situation in the state. The Chief Registrar of the Rivers State High Court, Mr. David Ihua Maduenyi, at a media briefing said Chief Magistrate Ejike King George was compulsorily retired from service by Judicial Service Commission on February 20, 2025, for his continuous absence from duty. He described the viral letter of retired Magistrate Ejike King George purportedly voluntary retirement as mischievous.
The retired magistrate applied for leave to go to London for medical reasons. That leave was granted by me. He applied for an extension the second time, which I also granted. He applied for a further extension of that leave. I refused to grant the application because he did not meet the requisite conditions for the grant. And I communicated this to him in writing and asked him to resume back to his duties as a magistrate. He refused to resume. He refused to take the option given to him. So the JSC did a letter giving him the options to either voluntarily leave the service or to be retired compulsorily. He refused to take the options. Then the commission retired him compulsorily.
Ihua Maduenyi also spoke on the reason why retired Chief Magistrate Ejike King George was reported to the Judicial Service Commission for disciplinary action.
The JSC compulsorily retired him by a letter dated 12th of February to take effect from the 10th of February 2025. So from that date, Ejike King George ceased to be Chief Magistrate in Rivers State. The facts leading to the issue which led him to the Judicial Service Commission panel was my report to the JSC. Report dated 23rd of January 2024. Absence from duty of Ejike King George. He refused to assume duty in that magistrate district. So that is the crux of the disciplinary action against him.
In other news, a lawyer, Deji Adeonju, says the money given by the Rivers State government to the Nigerian Bar Association was a donation, not a loan. Not a loan that should be demanded. Speaking on Nigeria Info FM's Morning Crossfire, Mr. Adeonju explained that several states in the country make annual contributions to the NBA conference. The human rights activist said the NBA moved its conference away from Port Harcourt because the conference cannot be presided over by someone he described as an illegal sole administrator.
Once the word donation has been used, it's irrevocable. You cannot make a donation and not later change your mind. It's not a loan that can just be demanded back. Unfortunately for the illegal sole administrator of Rivers State, and if the loan were to be revoked and returned, who should it be returned to? Sole administrator that is unknown to law. There are states that are not hosting that have also contributed, that contribute annually to the NBA conference.
You don't expect NBA to hold that conference here. There is no way that conference hold here where the administrator will come out and want to make one or speech. So if they do so and trying to mingle with the administrator, it will view them as a bad light.
Mr. Adeonju said this after the NBA dismissed the claim by the River State sole administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas, that the state paid 300 million naira to secure hosting rights for the 2025 annual general conference of the association that has now been moved to Enugu State. A group known as the Diobu and Town Youth Volunteers in the Opobonkora local government area is calling on President Bola Tinubu to urgently reinstate the democratically elected Rivers Governor, Siminalayi Fubara. The group in a statement said the will of the people must be respected and any attempt to undermine it threatens the foundations of democracy. It condemned the recent statements made by former head of service George Nweke, saying he was acting out a script handed to him by his political paymasters. It said such statements will only escalate tensions and derail the efforts made towards peace and stability in the state. It also said it is solidly behind Governor Fubara and his chief of staff, Edison Ehie. The group urged those instigating the current crisis to stop and embrace peace. The statement was signed by Wari Senibo Henry Omega, George Manila, Goswill Toby, Biobele Oruigoni, Dagogo Fubara, Goswill Manila, Dagogo Strongface, Kingsley Charles Jaja, Obia Fubara, and Alali Jonah Jaja. The newly appointed administrator of Opobonkora local government area in Rivers State, Fred Apiafi, says he would run an all-inclusive government for the betterment of the local government area. Mr. Apiafi said this while addressing workers at the council's headquarters in Opobo on assumption of office. The administrator called for support, saying his direct mandate is to ensure that the existing peace in the LGA is maintained. Fred Apiafi also thanked the River State sole administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas, for giving him the opportunity to serve his people and promised to prioritize the welfare of workers. Also speaking, the chairman of Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees, NOLGE, Diri Danderson, commended the administrator for placing workers' welfare top on his list, saying workers and people at the grassroots look forward to enjoying the dividends of democracy. The sole administrator of Akogutoro local government area of River State, Tamanotoye Peters, has promised to work collectively with critical stakeholders, including workers in the council, to enthrone lasting peace and restore democratically elected institutions. Dr. Peters made this known when he officially assumed duty at the Akolga Secretariat in Abonema.
I also thank the good people of Akogutoro. Your resilience, your patience, and your belief in peace and governance have brought us to this day. We are here appointed by divine providence and entrusted by the government to heal the land, restore order, and rekindle hope in the hearts of our people. This administration is not political. Political institutions will definitely be restored. Administrative, our mandate is to stabilize the local government, reestablish the structures of service delivery, and lay the groundwork for lasting peace and governance.
The administrator, who had interaction with workers of the Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees, NOLGE in Abonima, assured them of adequate attention to their welfare and quick intervention into the rehabilitation work of the council secretariat.
We'll look at vitalization of the council administration. To the dedicated civil servants and council workers, your sacrifice have not gone unnoticed. I assure you that your welfare and work condition will be given due attention. We will restore discipline, transparency, and professionalism in the local government workforce. I'll be speaking with your HLGA. We'll map out strategies on how to go about this. We'll begin a comprehensive review of our infrastructure needs. Currently, the one facing us is our local government secretariat. We'll look at that. We also have challenges with our primary health care.
Correspondent Sobi Ruwari reports that the administrator, Dr. Tamino Tonya Peters, who was given a rousing welcome by the Nolge leadership and workers of the council, was accompanied by the head of local government administration, Akukutoro local government, to inspect the ongoing rehabilitation work of the buildings at the secretariat and the health center in Obonoma. The Chief Executive Director, Institute of Research, Leadership and Capacity Development, Port Harcourt, Professor George Ahunaya, says the leadership problem in Rivers State is an indication that Nigeria is drifting away. In an interview with our correspondent, Professor Ahunaya, who is an expert in critical writing and critical thinking, decried the level of abuse of power by political office holders.
The rate at which our political leaders and public office holders abuse power is becoming increasingly very alarming and very regrettable. We should have this understanding that power belongs to God, and this power through the people is given to a few to govern the greatest nation. But unfortunately, the reverse is the case. What we see in Nigeria is power grabbing. Once you grab it, you forget the people's interest and become selfish. Our leaders, they make laws that favor them and their position, make policies that are harsh to the people who get them the mandate.
Professor Ahunaya advocated for measures to solve the leadership problems in the country.
Let there be established in every government institution a department I call leadership consultants or leadership advisory board that will become a think tank to these leaders. Apart from outside their PS, PPS, SS, and all the rest of them. Or we establish a leadership institute. If they can take this advice, it will go a long way to ameliorate and to a new order in our system.
Still to come, Nigeria inflation rate rises. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Some stakeholders in Oginigba community in Obiakpo local government area of Rivers State have alleged that some influential politicians are planning to hide behind the emergency rule to reopen a mall in Oginigba market, despite an existing legal matter about the acquisition of the market. At a press briefing in Port Harcourt, they said the court asked both parties to maintain the status quo An elder in the community, George Ariolu, and youth leader Samuel Ezeli faulted the roles of some security agents in the situation.
Yes, we suspect so too, because probably they are trying to use the situation in Rivers State, to capitalize on it, to open the place. Because probably don't have a governor right now. We are in emergency rule. Probably they feel they have contacts with one or two persons there. So they are trying to open the place and flout an order made by court, which has said that nobody should be on the land for now. Everybody should maintain status quo. We are law abiding. We only make the court to understand that this is what they have done.
The position of the community needs a land. We are begging that the Rivers State government and Nigeria as a whole should look into it. And everybody came back home since then. So it didn't bring the community down. The women are not happy. The people at market are not happy concerning what the people are doing to us. We don't have market now.
On his part, Chairman of Oginiba Community Development Committee, Samuel Onuwo, said those behind the reopening of the mall should exercise caution.
The community went to court, asking the court to declare that land should be reverted to Oginiba community. Ever since, continued to flout that order. The court has further ordered on the 27th of March that nobody enters that property. As we speak, they've occupied the property and they're about opening the shop. That is total violation to a court order. That's the position. We are calling on the Nigerian authorities, Nigerian police, the army to keep away from that property. This is not a kangaroo government where orders are given and no one obeys it. They must leave the property until this matter is determined.
A public policy analyst, Dr. Isaac Wadiuno, says the rising cases of mob action in Rivers State is largely driven by the country's harsh economic realities. Speaking on Nigeria Info FM's Hard Facts, Wadiuno explained that many people are hungry, frustrated, and looking for ways to unleash their anger. He identified peer pressure, among others, as part of the causes of the problem.
There are several reasons you can adduce to that, ranging from social, political to economic. But let's look at the economic reasons. A lot of people are hungry in this state. Any course of action at all that triggers his anger is capable of resulting in something unpleasant. The peer group influence is playing out here. Or people of the same professional ethics. It is based on shared interest. The shared interest is that we live by the street. Anything that happens on the street, we take responsibility.
Dr. Wadiuno called for increased public enlightenment and awareness to discourage mob actions and promote peaceful behavior in the society.
We need to educate our society. And education is not necessarily classroom education. Majority of them may have been secondary school dropouts. We must find a way for people to learn trade. Now, that will take some of them out of the street, especially those people who are willing to learn. The government should also begin to take responsibility because government is the only legitimate agency that is permitted to handle scenarios like this. The idea of allowing some group of people to take charge of a particular place and without government control is a problem.
A senior advocate of Nigeria, Olisa Agbakoba, has raised concerns over what he described as significant inconsistencies in the sexual harassment allegations made by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan against Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Speaking during a media briefing at his chambers in Lagos, Agbakoba, who leads the legal team representing Akpabio, called for a fair and evidence-driven approach to the sensitive claims. He, however, affirmed his support for efforts to combat gender-based harassment. He emphasized the need for objectivity and due process. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says recent killings in Plateau and Benue State is a reflection of the worsening security situation under President Bola Tinubu's administration. In a statement issued on his official X account on Tuesday, the PDP presidential candidate in the last election expressed sorrow and outrage over the killings. He expressed sadness at the resurgence of violent attacks in Plateau State. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, says headline inflation rate rose by 4.4 percent points to 24.23% in March, from 23.18% in February 2025. The Bureau disclosed this in its Consumer Price Index report for March 2025, released today. On the international scene, Hamas is said to have rejected an Israeli proposal for a 6-week ceasefire in Gaza, which called for the armed group to give up its weapons. A senior Palestinian official familiar with talks said the plan gave no commitment to end the war or for an Israeli troop pullout. key Hamas demands in exchange for releasing half of the living hostages which it holds. It comes as Israel continues its military offensive in Gaza. On the news this evening, you heard Speaker of the House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas has reminded Rivers Administrator to report to National Assembly. Rivers State Judiciary speaks on retirement of magistrate. Lawyer Olisa Agbakoba has faulted Senator Natasha's sexual harassment allegation against Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Nigeria's inflation rate has risen by 4.4 percentage points to 24.23% in March from 23.18% in February 2025. And on the foreign scene, Hamas has rejected Israeli ceasefire proposal. The news was edited by Onyeka Chinwosu. To reach news team, send an SMS or WhatsApp to 0808 721 7215. I'm Sam Chinedu. Thanks for listening.